We are at a very special time right now, and I'm very blessed to be sharing this moment with you today. This experience and this community called Mindvalley. How many of you are here for the first time? So this is my first time here, and you know an event is good when I'm at Luton Airport 2 days ago. I'm waiting for my flight online. I meet a new friend named Abbas who's sitting in the front row. Thank you for coming. And Sherry, his new friend. And I'm like, hey, you been to Mindvalley? He's like, yeah. His face immediately lights up. It's like, yeah, I was at A-Fest. I wasn't planning on coming, but I met these amazing friends there, so I'm here now. He flew 5,459 miles from San Francisco. Let's give Abbas some love. That was my first impression. I get to the hotel on Monday night, 12 o'clock. There's a crowd there. Hey, you guys from Mindvalley? Their face lights up again. A woman named Sunday who has amazing products apparently. And they're all like, yeah, Mindvalley's amazing. Second impression, before I even step into this building. And then yesterday I come here and I have a chance to meet some of you here, like Austin from Singapore. Where's Austin? Give Austin some love. Natalie from Estonia, Amina from Dubai, Sanella from Croatia, and then Alonzo from Atlanta, Georgia. USA in the house, baby. But what all these people had in common was I felt that they were being seen, I felt they were being heard, but most importantly, I felt that they had found a community that welcomed them for who they are right now, not in the past, not in the future, but where they are right now. And that is a very beautiful moment because I literally travel all around the world as a speaker. I've given over 1,000 presentations. I've shared the stage with Richard Branson and President Clinton. All that is great and fine, but what a lot of events miss is that they don't have community. And so for the first timers here, know that this is a very special, unique experience, and I am so grateful to be here sharing this experience, this community with you. Now at the count of 3, if Vishen is here, if his team is here, I want you all to applaud so loud that if he's 6 miles away or kilometers, he will hear your applause because we are here because of Vishen, his team, and his supporters. Please give them a round of applause, please. All right, so let's start. Wizard of Words, how to cast spells on your audience like Steve Jobs. As you think about what I'm sharing today, think about the end result. How many of you were here yesterday during John and Missy's presentation? So I always love coming before the events to get a feel of the vibe of the community, of the event, of the moment. Because all we are here in the present, and you have to be present. So when I was back over there watching this whole thing unfold, Vishen is a phenomenal interviewer, asking questions, talking about how this was all inspired by his lifebook experience. And so when you're watching my presentation, and more importantly, feeling what I'm talking about today, know that the goal is to hopefully have this connection. If you look at this couple who I just met yesterday, they've been together for 30 plus years, and yet John has his hand holding his wife in his arms. She has her hand on his thigh with a tender connection. So whatever you learn today, know that the end result, what John called deep soul desire, is hopefully desire to have connection. Because we live in the loneliest world in human history because we're all on our phone, our computer, our laptop, Netflix. All that is great, but that's these companies that spend billions and billions and billions of dollars trying to hook us in to these technologies. It's great to be connected, but what's more important is to have this, because this is the ideal. Because if you don't have that, it becomes very lonely and sad and depressing. And this community is so inspiring to know that you all belong here as a community. So when you think about what you're going to learn today, think about and more feel what you hope to achieve through this tender connection. So I was watching an interview with Bill Gates, and people always ask Bill Gates or anyone that has known Steve Jobs, so how was Steve Jobs? What was he like? And Bill said, he was a minor wizard, and that he, Steve Jobs, would cast spells and mesmerize people. And you can watch this interview, and Bill's like, he's just like, I don't know how he does it. He just like says things, does things, he's like, oh my gosh. And I'm like, no, wait, really? So the word Wizard of Words is a person that communicates the message so well, so clearly, so concisely, that you're like, wow, this is exciting. Now, unfortunately, we live in a world that, since it is so distracted, how many of you are coaches and speakers in this room? So I have clients that ask me, Christopher, how do I brand myself? How do I get out there? How do I expose myself to the world? I say, look, you have to start posting more videos. Whether you like it or not, we live in the Google world, where if you say you're a coach, an expert, an author, if someone Googles you, you'll either be invisible, visible, or an expert. So I encourage all of you to start stepping into your stage of life and saying, you know what, I have a story. Your story is a gift to the world. I'm gonna share that story online. Don't worry about all the haters, because there will be, but focus on the people that really combine your message with their message, and that's a real community like Mindvalley. But know that we live in a world where if you don't share your story, if you're not Wizard of Words, and if you are an entrepreneur, public speaking isn't just on stage anymore. It's on Instagram, LinkedIn, TikTok, YouTube, whatever you wanna call it. Public speaking is just your way to communicate your message. As long as you keep that simple, you have a story, you're gonna share that story, and you can inspire people. That's the whole point of sharing your story. Sound good? So let's talk about why Steve Jobs is a wizard of passion. You may not realize this, but in 1997, almost, or I guess 26 years ago, Apple was near bankrupt. Apple had to borrow $150 million from Microsoft. People who love Apple don't want to hear that Microsoft bailed out Apple, but that's true. So first they fire Steve Jobs in the 80s, that he started his company in the 70s. They bring him back in the 1990s, and he creates this whole story called Think Different. He hires a campaign, an advertising agency in San Francisco, in LA called Chiat/Day, and they create this whole story about Think Different. And it was actually a 1-minute video. If you have a chance after this presentation, go on YouTube, Google or YouTube Think Different campaign. You'll see a 1-minute video. It's black and white. And this is the power of storytelling. This video, arguably through storytelling of Think Different, changed the entire course of Apple and made it a $1 trillion company based on the fact that it shows images of Mahatma Gandhi and Muhammad Ali and Amelia Earhart, and it says how those who are crazy enough to think they can change the world are the ones that do. And at the very end, the music fades, and everyone's like, I want to buy an Apple product now. But that's the power of having words. That's the power of having a message where, yes, he's selling a phone or a service or a computer, but you all are hopefully sharing your story to inspire the world. But that one single story, he takes an actual company that's almost on the brink of bankruptcy and builds it into the most admired companies in the world called Apple. Another person, as you think about being a wizard, you have passion, now you have to have intention. Oftentimes people ask me, so Christopher, how do you prepare for your speeches? How do you get comfortable? What do you have in your mind? And I'm always listening to my own speeches. I'm listening to Jeff Bezos, I'm listening to Elon Musk, I'm listening to Whitney Houston, or I was watching her movie when I was flying here. But Oprah is one of the most inspiring wizards in the world because she talks about intention. She talks about how when she had her talk show, she had these guests on stage one time, the KKK. And the KKK, for those who are not American, they're a hate group in the US. And she realized that these people on stage were communicating with the people in the audience, and they're like using her stage to promote their hate. And she thought to herself, I will never, ever, ever again have anyone on my stage use me because I'm gonna have the intention to serve. So if you are a wizard of words, which all of you are, make sure you know who you're serving. Because whenever people ask me, Christopher, what's the purpose in life? Why are you here? What are we doing on life? And I say, if you know your who, or you know your what to serve, you will know your why of being here, your purpose. I want to serve entrepreneurs. I want to serve executives. I want to serve speakers, author, coaches. I know my who I want to serve. Therefore, I know my why to be here. Let's say a new friend of mine, her name is Merle. She's Estonian. They call her the mermaid. She's won 5 Guinness Book of World Records as a swimmer. Her what to serve is the ocean, is the environment. If you ever watch her Instagram videos, she's always passionately talking about her desire to serve the oceans. So at any point in your life, if you wonder, why am I here? What do I want to do? I like this whole thing about Wizard of Words, but do I really have a story to share? Yes, you do. And you share your story based on who you want to serve or what you want to serve in life. And in her case, Oprah is such a powerful story. When you look at her backstory, here's a woman that grew up black in the South in the 50s. She was sexually abused from 9 to 14, came from a single parent household. Her mother was a maid, father wasn't around. But when she was 16, she found a job in radio. 19, she found a job in TV. And by the time she was in her 30s and 40s, she had this show called The Oprah Show, where she had an intention to serve her community. And whether you realize it or not, you all have your Oprah Show. It's called Instagram. It's called YouTube. It's called LinkedIn. All these are your own platform. It's called a podcast. So know that we live in the most amazing time in human history, because it's the only time in human history where you don't need a CNN or a Fox or BBC to promote and broadcast your message. It's a very powerful freedom to have, and I encourage you to think about what Oprah does, what Steve Jobs has the passion, but also have the intention to serve. And the last thing is this: make sure you know your why, because if you don't know your why, it's very confusing to always want to share, because there's always going to be that doubt perhaps, or that imposter syndrome. But as long as you accept that there were some people that love you and some people that hate you, and it's all good. Because I remember when I wrote my first book over 20 years ago, I started getting some of these critical feedback on Amazon. I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm so afraid this person's saying all these negative things. But then I looked at a book that I read called The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, and they had like all these good reviews and bad reviews. So if you accept that there'll be trolls, there'll be haters, that's just reality of life. Because any person that has made any difference in human history, whether it's Stephen Covey that wrote The 7 Habits, or Gandhi, or John Lennon, or Jesus Christ, or Muhammad, or Bhagavad Gita, it doesn't matter. Whoever has made an actual dent in history has had haters and lovers. So you want the haters because that means you know you're pushing the limits, and that's the power of storytelling. The last aspect of being a wizard is love. You can have the passion, you can have the intention to serve, but if you don't do that in a foundation of love, you don't really have much of a way to share stories. My mother is the person I most love, the person I most admire. She's no longer here with us physically, but I carry her within my heart all the time. And wherever I travel, she was a devout Catholic. I always carry her rosaries with me to remind myself, to have something physical to hold on to remind myself of her. But when you share these stories, hopefully you know that you decide who you walk in your life with. If you look at this picture, the pair of shoes of me on the left and the shoes on the right is of my mother, because when my mother passed, it was the most traumatic moment in my life. But I also knew that we're here just for a physical moment and then we're gone, but we're here spiritually. And so for me, I put her shoes at my door every day. So it's the first thing I see when I walk into my apartment in Miami where I live, and it's the last thing I see when I leave. And I tell this to you because though, yes, I have spoken for over 20 years, yes, I have shared the stage with various people, but it really comes down to if you have love in your heart, if you walk with love, you'll always be a force of love. And so just imagine the worst case scenario, you share your story and someone's like, oh my gosh, Christopher is just way too loving. I don't really like this guy because he has passion in his voice and he has an intention to serve. Not a kind of guy I want to talk to or work with. Think about that. Have goals in your life, have ideals, but make sure you walk with love. In my case, it's my mother. Maybe for you, it's your father, your mother, your dog, your cat, your boyfriend, your girlfriend, whoever it is. Make sure you have someone that you know has loved you unconditionally, because wherever you walk in life, you carry that love with you, and with that love becomes a force of nature. Now, I read a lot, and I was watching this actual thing. I'm like, wow, this is so interesting. Yes, it's so important to be internal, to focus on yourself, but if you look at the first law of physics, we are all objects. We're either at rest or in motion. At rest or in motion. And I'm like, wow, this is so amazing. So let's say you're in motion, but you're going the wrong way. You need an external force. So if you're going the wrong way, literally I'm going to fall off the stage, I need an external force like, hey, don't fall off the stage, Christopher. But think about that. This is why Mind Valley is so powerful. This is why coaches, mentors, trainers, teachers are so powerful, because wherever you are in life, whatever you're going through, you can go through this direction, just like the laws of nature. You'll keep going in this direction, or you'll be still unless you have an external force to move you in the right direction. And so when you think about life, you think about your purpose, know that you have to have these external forces, which is why for you to be here today at Mind Value, applaud yourself for being here today, please. So let's dive into some of the basics of communicating. We talked about how, okay, you need passion, the intention to serve, and you need love. But in terms of the basics, there's a guy named Dr. Frank Luntz. He's an expert in communication skills. He's organized Republican and Democratic campaigns in the United States. He's worked with the biggest companies in the world. And he wrote a book called Words That Work. It's not what you say, it's what people hear. How many of you have been in a fight with your spouse or your boyfriend or girlfriend? And you say something, and they hear something else? Okay? Some people are like, yeah, that's me. But the point is, it's not what you say, it's what they hear. So make sure you're mindful that if you are saying something and they're like getting angrier and angrier and angrier, maybe what you're saying is not what they're hearing. Because just because you say certain words, that doesn't mean they're hearing it. If I say, I'm fine, I don't sound like I'm really fine. So make sure you're mindful of your tone of voice, your body language, because it's so powerful that if you keep things simple, novel, and you visualize things, you'll start being a better speaker. And these are some of the basics. So let me demonstrate what simple is. If you look at the English language, these 3 words are basic words. But you can also make it novel, meaning, if let's say you watch this speech, or you watch Vishen, or you watch some of the other speakers, and you're like, wow, they are so remarkable, which means you're actually writing something that's remarkable. It's like a remark. You're putting a mark down on something that you just learned. Or outstanding. Anytime I talk to my clients who I'm helping become speakers and coaches, they say, look, if your bio is not outstanding, if your message is not outstanding, that just means that are you standing out? What happens often is you can say you're a speaker, a coach, an entrepreneur. If you remove your name, someone else can put your name, speaker, author, coach, and entrepreneur. So when you write your bio, when you share your message, do you stand out? When we're kids, all we want to do is stand in the same crowd, but when you become a leader, which all of you are, you have to stand out. And lastly, noteworthy. If I say anything of value today, and you're writing or typing in your computer or your laptop or your phone, and it's worthy of notes. So I just took 3 basic words and showed you how to make them more remarkable, and I use acronyms like Remember, Ridiculous, Ron. R stands for remarkable, O stands for outstanding, and N stands for noteworthy. So anything you do in life, do your best to be remarkable, outstanding, and noteworthy. If you do things in your life that aren't worthy of notes, why are you doing them? If someone asks you, hey, what are you doing today, or how are you feeling? Don't just say, oh, I had a nice lunch, or nothing's really special. I often ask, what was the most memorable moment this week? Or what are you looking forward to on the weekend? And when I talk to my salespeople specifically, or my clients specifically, if they want to be a speaker, then you say, oh my gosh, I just booked a $15,000 speech, or I just raised $1 million. That's more remarkable than I ate a bologna sandwich, or I woke up from a good nap. All of us can be remarkable, but first you have to understand where you are right now, how you're perceived, and once you know that all of you can be remarkable, outstanding, and noteworthy, you will be. Now, some of you already be like, no, Christopher, I can't be remarkable, I can't be outstanding. You can. You have to start thinking, believing, and then you will be. I don't like that phrase, fake it till you make it. It's very disingenuous. Believe who you are on the inside before you become who you are on the outside. Believe who you are on the inside before you become who you are on the outside. Everything I've done in my life, whether it's a speaker, author, coach, anything, I believed it first. Our minds are like the software, our bodies are the hardware. Just keep telling yourself, if there's 50, 60,000 thoughts on our mind every single day, if you keep saying to yourself, I'm great, I'm amazing, it's not about being braggadocious or arrogant, it's about believing in yourself, because every dream you have is like a child that you need to grow, nurture, and really care for. So anything you do from this point forward, what did you do today that was very memorable? Think about that, because that's what will make you more remarkable. Now, going back to when you have these wizard of words, when you have these stories, do your best to make people smile. Because based solely on smiling, there are actual chemical reactions going on in our minds, our hearts, and they've done these studies on this where your dopamine levels go higher, your oxytocin, endorphin, serotonin, your cortisol levels, the stress level goes lower, and your immune system goes higher. So it's based solely on smiling. So ideally, when you meet people, some people are just always genuinely smiling, but if you can make people smile and make people laugh, it's a very powerful thing that isn't just my opinion, it's based on science, so much so that Ron Gutman, who if you ever have a chance to watch his TED Talk video, he talks about how when you smile, it has the same brain stimulation of 2,000 chocolate bars. I don't know about you, but I like chocolate, and I like chocolate bars. Or $25,000 or 16,000 pounds based simply on smiling. Now, I know culturally sometimes people don't smile. It's a cultural thing, or if you're politicians, they definitely don't smile. But when you're speaking and sharing your story, you do your best to watch their mannerisms, look at their smiles, because if you know they're smiling at you, that's a great sign that you're connecting with them. Let's dive into more of the science. There's a guy named Carmine Galli who wrote a book called Talk Like TEDs, where he dissects TED Talks. And he found, just as Aristotle found over 2,000 years ago, that persuasion is really about three things. You can't really influence people, move people, make people to act if you don't understand the science of persuasion. So the first category is ethos. Ethos is credibility. I can tell you, yes, I did used to work for American Express. I am from New York City. I have written 7 books. I just spoke at Amazon. I've helped hundreds of thousands of people speaking and teaching them how to be a speaker. But that's only 10% of the effectiveness as a persuader, as an influencer. Next is logos, facts and figures. As Annie, our wonderful MC, mentioned before, according to Stanford University professor Jennifer Acker, she found that stories are 22 times more memorable than facts. Stories are 22 times more memorable than facts. Think about this. If I asked you last week, what did you eat for lunch? Do you remember? But if let's say I met a couple yesterday and they're on their honeymoon for a month. And if I ask them next year, 10 years or 50 years from now, oh, what'd you do for lunch on July 12th? Oh, I was in Tallinn, Estonia for Mind Valley. We just gave a speech because it's memorable. Stories are memorable. Stories are what connect us, and that's based on the actual facts and figures. If I say I'm a network, I wrote a book about that. There's a guy from the University of Chicago. He said that your network is the #1 best predictor for your career success. So I reference credibility, which you got to reference yourself. You reference facts and figures. That's 25%, which is logos. But the single most important thing to you to be a wizard of words is pathos, which is storytelling. Which is why every single story, every single movie, every single novel. I remember I was a singer-songwriter at one point. The song that they played is actually one of the songs I wrote and I sang on, but I remember I write a lot of love songs, or used to at least. And I'm like, you know what, I want to learn how to be a better writer. I went into the bookstore at the time when bookstores existed, and I was looking at these novels, these romance novels. I'm like, why do women love romance novels so much? And I was reading these romance novels in the corridor of the bookstore. I'm like, oh my gosh, it's like so visual, it's insane how powerful they are. I'm sharing this because those who write well, those who speak well, they have stories that they're sharing details. And the most powerful thing you can all do is think about your stories and think about the various layers. The more layers you have, the more powerful stories you have. And any movie you watch, any play you watch, any podcast you listen to, it's all about the stories, because that's 65% in terms of your effectiveness. Now let's dial into the specific types of stories you want to share. You don't need 3. I think a lot. I spend, I would say, 80% of my time by myself. And when I have these epiphanies, I'm like, this is so cool. I got to share this with people around the world. And so the 3 stories, whether you're Jeff Bezos, Elon Musk, Steve Jobs, it doesn't matter who they are, they all have these specific stories. The first one is this, personal story. You need a personal story so they can relate to you. If you're not relatable, it doesn't matter how amazing your product is, it doesn't matter how smart, amazing you are, it doesn't matter, they're not gonna relate to you. I hate showing this picture, but it's important. It summarizes and captures who I am when I was 13 years old. But you rewind my life. I was 6 years old. My very first memory as a kid in first grade in Woodside, Queens, 4 miles east of Manhattan, was my teacher, bless her heart, in Catholic school, looking down at me and say, "Christopher, shut up." Now, she didn't really say that, but again, it's not what you say, it's what I hear. I hear a person of authority looking down at me, "Christopher, can you please not talk too much in class? Christopher, can you please not talk in class?" But what do I hear? "Shut up, shut up, shut up, shut up, shut up, shut up, shut up." I also had a reading disability, so now I was like, okay, shut up, Christopher. You're not smart, you're dumb. But lastly, I was the shortest kid in my class for all 8 years. And this is a picture of me in the 9th grade where I went to all boys school. And when I say I was short, I was 4'10", which I guess centimeters is like a 147. And so if you look at the people that are next to me, if you're a woman and you're short, it's not as a big deal. You can always wear heels. If you're a man and short, it's kind of hard to say, "Hey, you want to go out on a date with me?" It's like, I don't know about how many women want to like go out with guys that are shorter than them, but I'm just saying it was a difficult time. And the most difficult time when I was a short kid, before I had this cool hair, was I went to a party, and I asked this girl to dance, and she said yes. She was wearing a black hat, a white top, and a black skirt. And I remember this to this day only because she was like super hot, had a cute dimple. I had the courage to ask her to dance, and she said yes. But as I'm asking her to dance, and I start dancing with her, I was all happy. I'm like, dancing, this is so cool. And then this upperclassman walks up to me, literally lifts me up, laughs in my face, and says, "Ha ha, are you trying to pick up a second grader?" And puts me back down. I look at her, she's shocked, I'm shocked. This guy is just gone now because he's a bully, that's what bullies do. And I just walk away. It is one of the most humiliating moments of my life. I share this with you not because I want to, I share this because I need to, because how many of us have had emotional, spiritual, physical scars in the past? We've allowed those scars, those emotional scars, to literally shackle us down. It's like it's weighing us down. It's like a 50-pound or 40 kilometers. I'm always have to adjust my kilometers, pounds. But the point is, how many experiences in your life in the past, especially as childhood, if your teacher told you you're not smart enough, you're not bright enough, you're not pretty enough, all these things that we're told and we're bullied on, and then that carries with us to our adulthood. But I show this because I literally cringe, because when you know neuroscience, you understand life and how trauma works, just looking at this picture, it just reminds me of all those various memories where first they told me to shut up, then I was stupid, and then I wasn't very attractive because they would pat me on the head, call me a pygmy, and this upperclassman would just like ridicule me, right? But I share this because hopefully you know that in life, it's about the connection. The more trauma you've had, the more struggles you've had, the more pain you had, the deeper your pain, the more deep the purpose you have in life. So hopefully you know that. Don't be afraid to share your stories, because when I do travel around the world, yes, they might be impressed a little bit with what I've done in my business, but they're more impressed that I've chose to share a story about vulnerability. So again, personal story, so they can relate to you. Next one is professional story. You have to have a brand experience that they aspire to be you. So personal story, so they can have a reason to relate to you. Professional stories, so they have a reason to aspire to be you. So I don't always just want to share the things I've done well. I want to share the things that I didn't do well, like getting rejected from 39 medical schools when I was 22 years old. At one point, I wanted to apply to medical school. I felt like I wanted to help people. I used to live in a basement apartment in College Point, Queens, which is 10 miles east of Manhattan. And when I applied for 18 medical schools, they all rejected me. And me being me, I literally taped every single rejection letter on my wall, so every time I woke up, I would see those rejection letters and be more motivated and inspired. That's my mindset. When my friend walks into my room, he's like, "Dude, what is that? That is so depressing." I'm like, no. It's all about how you think about things. So I applied to another 21 schools the second time around and got rejected to all of those. So I thought, you know what? Maybe medical school is not for me. But if I look through my life, whether getting fired not once but twice, and I had talked to my good buddy Adam recently, and he's like, "You know what? Every time you don't get kicked out, that means you're not pushing yourself, Christopher." Because I've been kicked out of a lot of things, including my own employer, because at one point I wrote my first book, and I borrowed my friend's security card, and I went to the security of the CEO office thinking in my head, I'm just gonna go up there, leave my manuscript there, and ask the CEO at the time to write a testimonial because I used to be an employee at American Express. But the reality set in, and essentially I went up there, the security guard goes, what are you doing here? I'm like, sir, I'm a former employee of American Express. I'm just leaving my transcript here. Hopefully the CEO can give a testimony. He's like, what are you doing here? Wait right there. And it just dawned on me that, okay, I am no longer an employee. I have a security card that my friend should not have given me at restricted access at the CEO office. So he ended up escorting me down to the security room. Thankfully, I knew the guy there, and I told him the situation like, yo, I'm just here giving my book. But the point is, I got escorted out of my own former company. I got kicked out, okay? I show you these things because these are all building blocks. Don't be afraid to fail. If there's one thing that Americans do really well as entrepreneurs, they look for, chase after, and want failure. If you don't fail, you're not gonna succeed. Sarah Blakely, who created Spanx, her father would have conversations with Sarah, who's a billionaire, and he would say, what did you fail at today? Literally, she would not get compliments from her father if she didn't fail. Think about how amazing that is. That if you want to be successful, you have to have failures, especially in sales, especially you want to share your message. I've easily been rejected thousands of times by prospective clients, and I just see it as this. Again, perspective. You can look at failure as a wall that you're banging your head against. That hurts. Or you can look at it as a hurdle that when you jump over the hurdle, you're stronger, you're more resilient, you have more grit. It's all about perspective. Oh my gosh, you got rejected so much, it must have hurt. No, it didn't. Every person that doesn't hire me, I'm like, it's their loss. Every girl that doesn't like me, it's their loss. Because I know my value, I know my passion, I know that I'm a loving person, so I'm like, whatever, it's their loss. So if you have that mindset and know that it's part of success, because any person, especially on Instagram, that's showing all the success, they have all had these supposed failures because all those things are building blocks. You will never see anyone that's truly successful who has not had these various struggles. I just happen to get kicked out of a lot of things and get rejected, but that's okay. But I have written 7 books. The one I'm most well known for is the one on the right where I talked about networking with billionaires, even though as a kid I didn't know what the word billionaire was. The most recent book is called The Wizard of Words, which is what this presentation is about. And I wrote another book called Story-Based Leadership, where every single leader, if you think about, again, Steve Jobs, Elon Musk, or world leaders like Nelson Mandela or Mahatma Gandhi or Margaret Thatcher, they all have stories, and it's based on their life. This is one of my favorite books that I ghost wrote. I used to volunteer at a homeless shelter in LA. I interviewed dozens of homeless people, and I picked 8 of them into this book. Whether it was a 17-year young woman who unfortunately was raped, or an 85-year-old woman named Betty who came to the United States looking for her daughter, or a gentleman named Kenneth who was homeless at age 10, and he remembers Thanksgiving in the US, a holiday in November, where he just felt that his feet were gonna fall off because he was so cold. It's all about stories, and hopefully you can inspire, and I had the privilege and honor to capture their stories in an interview and put that in a book. And it was all inspired by this young lady, this young girl named Hannah, where on September 2nd, 2010, I walk into this shelter in LA, and I see this little girl on the 3rd floor of the gymnasium. She walks up to me and says, do you want to play jump rope? And now, mind you, her neighbors outside in the downtown area, Skid Row, if you've been there, they're pimps, prostitutes, drug dealers, drug addicts, pedophiles, murderers, and rapists. I wish I was being facetious, but I'm not. And so those are her neighbors, but inside there are over 1,000 people, 100 of them are kids, including Hannah, who's 8 years old, who asked me to play jump rope. She had passion, she had intention, she didn't even know she was serving, and that picture was a long time ago. She'd probably be 21 years old right now, but she inspired me based on her wisdom, her passion, her love, of creating the only homeless youth program of its kind in the world, where we've mentored, coached thousands of homeless kids to stay in school, get jobs, and more frankly, just be alive. And one of the guests we had at one point was Elon Musk, and I'm just grateful because these kids have a story that no one has profiled, so I chose to do that, and it's beautiful. Thank you. Now again, remember, 6-year-old Christopher Kai, shut up, shut up, shut up, writing I Want to Talk in Class on the board, and then years later, I'm sharing the stage with Richard Branson or Steve Wozniak at one of the biggest conferences with 12,000 people across 4 days, because a story that's inspiring, that's aspirational, you have to have low points and high points. Make sure you share the low points, because if you only share the high points, your nose is going to be a little bit higher for people to look at, and you don't want that. You have to share the low points, otherwise not very inspiring. So yes, I have spoken on these various stages, but I also had a lot of lows, but that's what makes it inspiring. And now my only purpose in life is to help my clients, help my friends become speakers. This is a program I started over 7 years ago where I teach them how to frame their story. And what I most love is the guy in the middle, his name is Colton. They're all clients and friends of mine, but they have stories that they had. He grew up on a farm in Washington, and now he's just like crushing as a salesperson. Rod used to work as a personal trainer, but all these people have stories of themselves transforming their lives. And that's what all of us are here to do, transform our lives, if you understand the power of storytelling. After doing this community for my clients, I thought, you know what? I want to branch out more, just like the TED conferences. You have the TED Talks, the main actual conference, and you have TEDx Talks. So I thought, you know what? My clients, I'll call them Gifter Talks, which are them sharing their story with the world, because I believe your story, all of you here, your story is gift to the world. But I'm creating another community. We just celebrated our first anniversary last month called Gifter X Talks, where if you're ever in Miami, you're welcome to come as my guest. We had Richard Saul Wurman, the guy in the middle. He started the TED conference in 1984. So it's been called the TED Talks of Entrepreneurs. But as you know, through entrepreneurship, you're going through this journey, and this is just my next iteration of my journey. So the first two stories, personal story, so people can relate to you. Professional stories, so they can aspire to be you. The last story that I find that most people don't do is they don't share client stories. Now, client stories are the reason that your clients want to pay you. How many of you are entrepreneurs? Every single person in this room should be raising their hand, because if you have a day job, you don't know if you're gonna have a day job. We live in a world where it's a bit scary, especially during the pandemic. You have all these people losing their jobs. Have some side income. But with this, make sure you can talk about how amazing you are, but have your clients talk about how amazing you are in their words. And Vishen did this yesterday so beautifully. He's like, yo, who wants to share how they're inspired? And so all these people are coming on stage, and it's amazing because based on McKinsey research, it's 31% more effective when you use client testimonials. If I say, I'm gonna treat you all for dinner tonight in Estonia, pick the best Italian restaurant, I like Italian food, I go on Google and I say, the menu looks good, the chef looks amazing, but the reviews look pretty bad. That's client testimonials. That's consumer-driven marketing. Whatever your service you're doing, whatever product you're selling or offering, make sure you use your clients' stories to share how awesome you are, because it's a lot more effective, and Vishen did that very, very, very well. How many of you were here last year when Tim Storey spoke? He's one of the most inspiring speakers I've ever met in my life. He's worked with Oprah Winfrey. I shared the stage with him a few weeks ago in Miami, and it was quite humbling when he was like, I've been to 78 countries, and you're one of the best. I'm like, that's like really cool and gratifying. So I can say how maybe good I am as a speaker, but to have some of that stature, that experience, of that heart, to say that about me, that's just very, 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 very kind of him. And again, whatever you're doing, share stories about your clients. This case, Ellen never even thought about networking. Shazad was 20 years old when I helped her get on the stage in IKEA. Now she won an award. Brooke has such an inspiring story. She's a single mother in Columbus, Ohio. She was raising her kids. She wanted to prove to her kids that she can do different things in her life. She decided to be a bodybuilder. She won the World's Strongest Woman contest in Norway. And after she became the world's strongest woman, she's like, Christopher, I want to share my story. And here she is. She was sharing the stage with Richard Saul Wurman, the founder of TED Conference. But it's a big end. Transformation, progression, and journey. Myron literally wanted to be a speaker for 10 years, and we were able to help him. This guy, interestingly enough, Bill, he's a truck driver. He's driven 2 million miles in the United States as a truck driver. But his fear was public speaking. And I never thought he'd be a client of mine, but he wanted to speak. He wanted to get over his fear of public speaking. I want you to remember this phrase. People always ask me, what is one quality, the single most important quality I need to succeed? It's courage. It's courage to face your fears. It's courage to move past your past obstacles. The reason is this. Your wings of courage appear when you leap off your cliff of uncertainty. I'll say that again. Your wings of courage appear when you leap off your cliff of uncertainty. So many people they want to be more successful, they want to do more things, but you have to do things first. First law of nature, right? You have to do things, you have to be in motion, but in the case of courage, your dreams are never where you are right now. Your dreams are like way over there where you have to stretch yourself. So in this case, with Bill, he stretched himself so much that he wanted to get over his fear of public speaking. And one of the best compliments I had was he's like, I've never felt more confident in my life. It's not just about public speaking, it's about life. Don, like me, I was really short, he was really fat. Apparently in the United States, he was in Little League football. And when you're over 100 pounds, he's only 9 years old, by the way, they put an actual label, they put a sticker. They put a red sticker on his helmet that said he was fat. So for 15 years, he just had low self-esteem, didn't feel like he fit in, he felt like an outsider, but now he's a very successful entrepreneur. But again, until you had someone like me or you to tell him how awesome he was, to tell him how remarkable, outstanding, and noteworthy what he didn't even know. And lastly, Dragana, she was so afraid, she wouldn't even do a Facebook Live by herself. I said, Dragana, I got you. I'm going to sit here literally. And she had over 2,000 views from her first Facebook Live. Now she's an international speaker. The point is, you have low points, you have high points, and all of you are there to help your friends, your colleagues, your clients get to where they want to go. But you have to share these stories. Otherwise, why would they believe you? Now, the reason why I feel that I've been successful as a speaker, as a coach, is because I listen well. It's a learned skill. This is the character for listen in Chinese. I am so grateful and blessed that my mother forced my brothers and I to go to Chinese school when I was in New York City for 12 years. I got left back 4 times. I don't know how that happens, but I just hated Chinese school because it's very hard. But this character is so inspiring. This is the character for listen. So if I say what ting dao ni means I'm listening to you. The top left-hand side is ears. Makes sense. You're listening with your ears. Right below that on the bottom left, it's king, which means when you listen, you're listening with respect. Top right-hand side, it's 10. Right below that is eyes, meaning you're listening with your 10 eyes. Right below that is 1, meaning you're listening to someone with 1 undivided attention. But the most important symbol in this character, because Chinese is like Tetris, where they combine all these characters together to make different words, is heart. So when you think about the genius, the person, the man or woman that created this character many, many, many years ago, to listen to someone, you're listening with your ears, your 10 eyes, with respect, with 1 undivided attention, with your heart. It's very easy to say you're listening, but if you listen with your heart, you really do feel things a lot more than other people. My staff knows this. I am hypersensitive to energy. Whenever I do anything, I'm like super focused, and because I just feed and channel energy and put it out there. But if you want to be a wizard of words, start listening more. Start listening with your eyes, your ears, with 1 undivided attention, and most important, with your heart. The last thing I'm going to share is one final story about my mother. She has given me many gifts in life. She used to knit sweaters when I was 6 years old. They were maroon and navy blue sweaters, and at the time, I was just so irritated that my mom would think that I would wear a sweater that she made. But now, I'm so irritated that I wish I was more smart as a 6-year-old kid, that I wish I would keep those sweaters that my mom knitted for me because they are my mom's love, showing love. She would buy me birthday cakes when I was a kid, and buy me McDonald's and White Castle hamburgers, even though it was not healthy for a kid. But the first gift she gave me before I was even born was she named me after a saint. She named me St. Christopher. And St. Christopher is the patron saint of transportation. The story goes like this. He's 7'5" tall, huge shoulders. There's a raging river, and his goal, his purpose, his mission in life, his why, was to carry people along this raging river to the other side of safety. And one day, he carries this baby on his shoulders. And for whatever reason, as he's walking across this raging river, he almost drowns. He feels the weight of the world with this baby on his shoulders. He gets to the other side, puts the baby down, and is wondering what is going on. It turns out that that baby is baby Jesus reincarnated. The word Christopher means Christ bearer. He's bearing the burden of Christ. So how inspiring, how amazing, how remarkable, outstanding, and noteworthy is it that my mother chose a name that literally is my life purpose before I was even born. But I will tell you this, All of you are saints. All of you have the ability, because you've had struggles, you've had obstacles, you've had challenges, whether you had self-image issues when you were a kid, where you're too fat, too small, too thin, whatever it might be, whether you're like me, I had some like mental disability up here, or at least they told me that, or maybe you have relationship issues where you feel lonely, where you can't find this girlfriend or boyfriend, or maybe you got divorced, or maybe you're going through some grief. The point is, we've all had struggles. We've all had obstacles. We've all had challenges. We've all had this raging river where you literally feel like you're drowning and you can't even take one breath. But it's because of those struggles, those obstacles and challenges, that the struggles you had make you a strong person. The obstacles you have give you the opportunities to change, and lastly, the challenges you have will make you change into the person that you want to be, not who you are. So I want to thank you for being here today. Know that all of you can be a wizard of words as long as you have that passion in your heart, the intention to serve, and you always walk with love, because you'll be a force of love. Thank you so much for being here today.